Welcome, everybody. I'm Scott Binsack. It is January 27th, 2018. Thank you for joining me. Tonight, I'm going to be getting into our nightly and world news, as well as I'm going to start something new about going over quickly what's trending on Facebook at the time of my show, as well as I wanted to apologize to anyone, our group and the public and my supporters and followers. I haven't been live for a little bit because I am recovering from bone surgery in my face. So I'd like to apologize about that. I'm starting to finally feel much better, and things are looking much better for my infection in my face that was in a bone from a near-fatal auto accident from 1999. So tonight, let's get into what's trending on Facebook. I really want to start doing this. We're going to start using this in our MFA Private Forum as well, what's trending from our own news channel that's soon to be up. So I thank you, everybody, for all your great messages and comments and emails about my health. Facebook, what's trending right now? We're looking at perspective. Remember, everybody, Beetle Bailey. Mort Walker, at 94, created laughter nearly every day of his life. He died Saturday. I remember Beetle Bailey with my grandparents and reading the comics with my grandfather on Sunday on the newspaper. That's the number one trending right now. We have East Village, New York. A bar bans the use of the word literally. You have 5 minutes to finish your drink and leave it if you're caught using the word literally at this Manhattan bar. This is a true story. This is ridiculous. You want to ban the word literally. We're now coming into, freedom of speech, and things are just, this is ridiculous. Bar bans customers from saying the most annoying word, literally. Okay. So you say. Butler, Pennsylvania. 3 Pennsylvania teens are charged with purposely exposing classmate to pineapple. 3 teenage girls are facing multiple felony charges after reportedly devising a plan to expose their classmate who is allergic to pineapples to pineapple juice. Talk about plots of children. The world is getting uglier daily. And this is just an example of hatred, jealousy, and to know a young girl is allergic to pineapples, to devise a plan to expose them to it. That's almost like cause her death, depending upon. I can see why it's trending. This is an interesting story. It's a horrible story, actually, if you think about it. Madness. Steve Wynn. This story's gone crazy since the story. I'm not going to be battling about politics tonight because, as you know, it's come out that Donald Trump had originally fired Mueller. It is a true story. Even Fox News is reporting it. For all those very, very far right and or far left who go after CNN, Fox, it is a confirmed story. And back in June, I had posted a story, posted from my source, and people say I don't have sources. I couldn't have come up with this, that Trump had fired Mueller, and then I got smashed for it because it never came out that he fired him. And now we know why. Even the closest sources and those even around the White House. That is a huge story from Maggie at the New York Times, and there's a real story, and there's a very important story to the mindset of Donald Trump. And now we have Steve Wynn, who is resigned as RNC finance chairman amid allegations. Steve Wynn stepped down Saturday as Republican National Chair Committee. He's also become very close with Donald Trump. The finance chairman amid allegations of sexual misconduct. This is a true story. This is not something his ex-wife has dreamed up. My sources in Vegas confirm this. And I know some things about Steve Wynn. He's a dirtbag. He's a nasty guy. Let's just leave it at that. Most of these rich, affluent billionaires are, way out there. Next, we have Air Force One. This is 2 new refrigerators for Air Force One to cost over $23 million. What could we all do with $23 million? $23 million. A pair of new refrigerators on Air Force One will cost U.S. taxpayers more than $23 million. Okay. We could do a lot with $23 million. That's all I have to say. VAR causes havoc. Oops, excuse me. VAR causes havoc during Liverpool's FA Cup tie with the West Brom, which their clash was the only game selected from this weekend's FA Cup fixtures to use VAR to overturn decisions, and it was called upon 3 times just in the first half alone. VAR's absolute carnage, the Empire of the Cop reports. Pathetic Liverpool's wait for a trophy. Obviously, the Daily Mail is now in this story, so it doesn't really affect us here in the United States. Also trending, Laurinburg, North Carolina. FBI believes they have found a missing 4-year-old boy's body. Latest as of 3:15, Laurinburg. Agents with the Federal Bureau of Investigation believe they have found the body of 4-year-old Raul Gonzalez Johnson. It's a heartbreaking story. Even the sheriff teared up after the body of the missing boy was found. They found the body in a pond, and I'm sure there's going to be arrests for this horrible story. Wish there would be much more better news in the news, but there really isn't. Donald Trump is trending. After shithole uproar, Trump reportedly says in a letter he deeply respects the people of Africa. Weeks after the controversy over his shithole country's remarks, President Trump reportedly sent a letter to African leaders this week saying that he deeply respects the people of Africa. Donald Trump changes with the wind. This is why he's dangerous. 1 minute it's one thing, 1 minute it's the next thing, and having a man in charge of the nuclear weapons of the the largest free country in the world is not good in my book. And like I said, I'm just reporting the news. I'm staying out of this. It's just, and I want everybody to know publicly, I have made a decision. So just so you all know, all of those on there, I have told you what's going to happen in the Trump case. It is coming to fruition and has. Many have not even wanted to give me credit for my sources about Flynn and Manafort. All good. Both sides are dirty. And I'm telling you now, we are heading for a major constitutional crisis with Donald Trump. And how that constitutional crisis is going to come about is going to be when he refuses to testify. And then he's subpoenaed to the grand jury and he refuses to go. If that happens and says he doesn't have to go, you're looking at a major constitutional crisis in this republic. I'm going to leave it at that. I've tried to tell everybody what's coming. Let the chips fall where they may. I'm going to worry about my organization, our members, the future of this organization, our survival group, our Atlas cities, and you guys. I'll report the politics, but when it comes to this ridiculousness, and we're going to get to a story tonight about the Prince, Wahidid, and I will explain to you and show you that the madness that everybody was going on for months about Prince Wahidid and the Saudi roundup was all a bunch of BS, okay? It was about control and money. Had nothing to do with the Vegas shooting, had nothing to do with the alleged assassination attempt on the Prince. Wahid is Trump's arch nemesis. We'll get into that in a minute. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 84, signals she will not retire anytime soon. Jesus, lady. This lady's got 10 feet in the grave. Not 2. She's got 10 feet in the grave, and she's sitting on our Supreme Court. No disrespect, but this is what I mean. These lifetime appointments need to go. Lifetime appointments for judges, there should be a certain cutoff date. I don't care what it is. This woman's making decisions for this country, and at 84, I just don't think it's a sound practice. That's all I got to say. And then we're back to Butler, Pennsylvania. 3 Pennsylvania teens are charged with the pineapple. It dropped as we were talking, it dropped in the trending lineup on Facebook. The letter to the African leaders from Donald Trump is now trending at number 1. Saudi billionaire Alwaleed released from detention. Everybody remember this story? Okay. Got locked up in the roundup. I'm going to play the video for you. It was all bullshit. And just so you know, he has not paid a dime to the Saudi government, nor will he have to. This man is worth $17 billion. And for all you Trump fans, Donald Trump might be at $3 billion, okay? This man's $17 billion. He hates Donald Trump, okay? There's no big secret thing with him to assassinate the prince, or he would not be where he is and being released right now, okay? I'm going to play you the video. He was released. They were in the roundup. Several other Saudi princes were in the roundup as well. And it was really for money. The Saudi government, I'm going to tell you something. The Saudi government does not have as much money as you think it does, and it's lost a lot of money with the drop of oil sales over the past few years. The Crown Prince came in, did this alleged corrupt roundup to really rob these princes of over $100 billion, except Alwaleed did not have to pay anything or give up any of his assets. And he's going to remain in Saudi Arabia. He's not leaving. So, I want to play this for you so you can see. And Saudi Arabia learned that by going after some of the biggest and wealthiest men in the world, people stopped investing in Saudi companies and stocks dropped and they pulled out. It shook the investment world with Saudi companies. I don't think the prince is going to be doing this again. Okay? So there was not this great big coup that everybody believes, and that the Saudi prince was in Las Vegas, as we've already covered in the first show of our 3-part series. That, this, so everything that was on Anon and Q and these people who follow all this stuff, pay attention. This was all your stuff that you were following about this roundup and the princes was all bullshit and about Alwaleed. Just so you know. He was never tortured. He was never anything. Okay? He's sitting at the Ritz-Carlton. And I'm going to show you that now.
Talal was released from the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh. He conducted an interview with the Reuters news agency from the suite where he'd been confined. Bin Talal is one of Saudi Arabia's most prominent businessmen and one of the world's richest men. But he'd been held for more than 2 months, accused of corruption. In the interview, he described the entire situation as a misunderstanding.
There are no charges.
Okay.
They're just some discussions between the government, But rest assured that this is a clean operation that we have, and we're just in discussion with the government on various matters, and that I cannot divulge right now because we are in confidential discussion with them.
The mug bearing his likeness was just one of the many objects shown as the prince gave a tour of where he'd been detained. Bin Talal's arrest in November was part of what the government called an anti-corruption campaign ordered by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The government says $124 billion is expected to be seized from more than 200 individuals, a group that is said to...
A what? Pay attention. A what? $124 billion to be seized. Saudi Arabia needed money, okay? And it's also the young prince's way of saying, listen, don't fuck with me, okay? But there's not this great big coup. There is one prince that's in a different story, shot down in a helicopter. Total different story. I'm going to be tying that into some other news that is coming from me this week, and I will get into that. However, there's no great big conspiracy here with this stuff. Okay? There's much more behind this, but it was really Saudi Arabia's. Saudi Arabia needs money. I know that sounds hard to believe to all of you, but Saudi Arabia needs money, and they just got over 100 and some odd billion from these guys. Here, pay us off, and we'll let you out and not bother you anymore. Alwaleed, no. Doesn't have to pay anything. Nada. Nada.
To include the owner of the NBC television network, as well as several other senior princes. Observers say the crackdown has allowed bin Salman to do far more than simply consolidate power.
I think there are two things here. It's about money, because the Saudi government is facing financial difficulties because of the collapse of the oil prices over the past few years. And Mohammed bin Salman is having very ambitious economic plan actually to reform the kingdom. So he needs the cash money in order to carry on with this project. But this is not the only issue. The other issue, in my opinion, here is that he's trying to create a popular base of support for him, because all these people are in fact corrupt.
Like I said.
Bin
Like I
Talal,
said.
whose firm holds stakes in companies like Twitter, Citigroup and Apple, is estimated to be worth $17 billion. His release could potentially reassure investors. But analysts believe the timing of his interview with Reuters, as the World Economic Forum met in Davos, was no coincidence.
Having someone like Prince Talal, for example, speak out publicly, as he did yesterday, shows that, you know, the Saudis are trying to use him as somewhat the poster child of liberalism. They're trying to appeal to investors overseas, saying, we realize that what we did and the way we did it with that purge last year, we completely undermined business confidence and investor confidence in Saudi Arabia.
Bin Talal has told Reuters he expects to remain in full control of his global investment firm without being required to give up his assets to the government. Hannah Hoxter, Al Jazeera.
No great big. Now, there's a lot behind this, okay? However, has nothing to do with an assassination attempt on the prince or any of the above, okay? There's other information with this that have to do with Trump and Alwaleed. Trust what I tell you. That's a whole story in itself, and I'm not getting into it tonight and diverting from the news. But there is a whole, and Alwaleed is coming out on top of this deal. That's all I will say at this time. Okay? Because there is a Trump and him hate each other. Okay?
Ever wanted to learn how to build a flying car? Well, here's your chance. Udacity, an e-learning school in Silicon Valley, started accepting applications to study flying car engineering January 23rd. It was set up by Sebastian Thrun, who previously headed up Google's self-driving car project Waymo, and he thinks it will attract at least 10,000 applicants. Over a 6-month period, students will study a new flying car curriculum, as well as courses in aerial robotics and intelligent air systems. This isn't the first time Thrun has thought outside the box. In 2016, he offered a self-driving car program at Udacity, and that attracted 50,000 applicants. Thrun admitted to news sources flying cars, quote, feels like science fiction now, but he went on to say, quote, in a few years' time, this will be the hottest topic on the planet.
Agreed.
United News International, I'm Rachel Latham. The European Union's top court decided immigration forces cannot use sexual orientation tests to decide the acceptance of asylum seekers' applications. Officials in Hungary put a Nigerian man through psychological tests to determine if he was gay before they decided if he could be granted asylum. The man, not named in the case, originally put his claim in 2015. He said he faced persecution for being a gay man living in Nigeria, where homosexual activity is criminalized. Authorities denied his application because the psychologist said he was not gay based on his answers in the test. The court ruled January 25th his case must be reconsidered and stated it was an invasion of, quote, the most intimate aspects of life. It also said immigration officials can seek experts' opinion on whether or not to accept an asylum application, but it must be in line with human rights. For United News International, I'm Rachel Latham.
Pay attention.
The capital of Japan is experiencing a historic cold snap. Japan's meteorological agency said temperatures dropped as low as -4 degrees Celsius in central Tokyo Thursday morning, January 25th.
Yikes.
Local news reported the figure is the lowest on record since January 1970. A deputy government spokesperson said the chill prompted a low temperature warning for the first time in over 3 decades. The icy cold is expected to stretch into the weekend, with lows of -4 degrees Celsius expected Saturday and -1 degree Sunday. The worst snowstorm in 4 years also struck Tokyo earlier this week, disrupting train and airline schedules and causing traffic accidents. The city's fire department said it responded to over 2,800 calls on Wednesday, the most ever received in one day since the service started in 1936. City officials advised residents to protect pipes that may freeze, choking access to water. For United News International, I'm Kimberly Caldwell.
Snow in Saudi Arabia, now we're talking. Wham!
The floods in the French capital, Paris, are getting all the headlines, but the rising waters in France's second city, Lyon, are also causing concern. The Saône and Rhône rivers meet in the city and have broken their banks in the past, most recently in 2003, when the road by the Saône was cut and homes flooded just north of the city. I spent all my childhood on the riverside and I rarely saw floods like this. It's pretty impressive. For the Saône, it's been years since we saw it in flood. In general, every winter it's in flood, but the situation's exceptional this year for the Rhône because it's not often in flood. The meeting of the two rivers, the confluence, is catastrophic.
C'est catastrophique, quoi.
The lower levels of public car parks closest to the river banks were evacuated and closed, exacerbating the already difficult parking in the city. Some private garages were preparing to pump out water if needed. The car parks are completely flooded and you feel the lack of spaces in the city centre. For some, however, it's a chance to mess about on a river flowing with unusual force. And the city's rowers and kayakers are loving it. The recent bad weather's considerably raised the level of Lyon's rivers. The banks of the Rhône have been flooded and partly closed. This is the first time since their development in 2007. The level of the Saône remains high, with the peak expected for this weekend. The Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region remains on alert even if the weather forecasts announce better weather on Saturday and Sunday.
Pay attention. Every time I keep showing you more volcanoes.
The alert on Mayon volcano was raised to level 4 as it continued to display intense sporadic lava fountaining. Behind me, you can see Mount Mayon spewing lava. According to volcanologists, these frequent explosions signify that Mayon volcano is at the peak of a major and very dangerous eruption. Mayona can't help but cry over her family's situation. Ironically, she was named after the famous tourist attraction, but it's now made her life miserable. A single mom of 6 children, she recalls the night when she and her children were forced to run to safety. She said, "I was really frightened at the rumbling sound that the volcano made. It sounded very loud, like the engine of a big truck." Although her house is inside the 8-kilometer danger zone, Mayona remained in her house. When her children started crying, she decided to take them to the evacuation center. This school is now an evacuation center. Mayona and her children share a classroom with 12 other families. They are among the more than 60,000 residents who were forced to leave their homes because of the imminent danger posed by Mayon volcano. Most of them, like Mayona, fled with just meager belongings and no money to buy food. They were very happy and thankful that CBN Humanitarian came to give them rice, eggs, and other food items. And more than the physical food, Mayona received spiritual nourishment as a CBN Humanitarian Church partner told her about the good news of salvation through Christ and prayed for her.
Good to see good people in the world.
Her face lit up and she said, "My faith has just been strengthened because I know that whatever happens, I am now certain that God will never leave me."
Amen.
The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology says
2 to
3 months may pass before Mayon volcano is peaceful again. In these trying times, CBN Humanitarian is committed to help. Lucille Telusan, CBN News, Albay, Philippines.
People believe North Korea is so deadly and dangerous for Christians and other religious believers because it's godless. But actually, the opposite is true. Kim Jong-un is worshipped as a god, and an entire religion is built around idolizing the Kim dynasty.
Suzanne Schulte and Tom Belke recently testified on Capitol Hill about the Juche religion that was clamped on the Hermit Kingdom by Kim Jong-un's grandfather.
He set himself up as God, his son up, Kim Jong-il, is the Jesus figure, and Juche, their philosophy, as the Holy Spirit.
It's why Schulte believes North Korea suffers so much evil.
That whole construct of how that regime is established is a perversion of the Christian gospel message.
Belke has written Juche, a Christian study of North Korea's state religion.
Americans and people that are outside of North Korea do not understand how North Koreans think if they don't understand Juche religion and how it's been brainwashed.
And they are brainwashed to idolize him through their entire lives. And they in fact have a prayer they say, "Thank you, Father Kim Il-sung," after a meal. They have what we would know as the Apostles' Creed that's changed to worship the Kim dictatorship.
North Korea thinks America is so dangerous it keeps threatening to nuke the U.S. But Belke insists the regime actually is more afraid of the power of the gospel than it is of the American superpower.
The Bible and the Christian gospel is the most destabilizing thing to the North Korean regime.
Schulte says the creator of Juche, who later defected, told her
it was only the gospel message that could break free the stranglehold over the people of North Korea with the brainwashing of this system that they're suffering under.
Because it undermines Kim's supposed godlike authority.
The Bible teaches that there is a supreme sovereign God over all men, including the dictator.
Belke thinks President Trump's name-calling, like labeling the dictator Little Rocket Man, has a similar and significant impact.
I think it should be intensified because what he's essentially doing, it's both counterintuitive and brilliant. He's actually mocking their God.
Schulte thinks North Koreans, if given the chance, would easily pick Christianity's message over Kim's Juche.
You are a beloved child of God and created to be free, and they teach you are a slave of the Kim family and you need to devote your entire lives and sacrifice and die for the Kim family.
Schulte's backing Free North Korea Radio as one way to broadcast the gospel into the Hermit Kingdom at least 1 hour a day. She's heard it's led to miracles, like in one suffering town.
All the children were dying from typhoid fever. This one woman who listened to the Free North Korea Radio broadcast wrote down the Bible verses, and she said, "I'm going to pray these over my daughter. And if it's true, if God's real, then my daughter will be healed." And her daughter was the only one that survived that epidemic.
Amen.
He believes it's power like that, not nukes and missiles, that'll win a victory
miracles
over
happen
the
every
Kim's
day.
evil.
These spiritual powers and principalities that control that undergird the North Korean regime have to be broken. That's not going to happen simply by normal policies. That has to happen by prayer and fasting, and that's the work of the church.
Schulte would start by calling for a worldwide day of fasting and prayer.
I believe we should do it April 28th, which is the anniversary of the first North Korea Freedom Day.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
A German judge has caused outrage at a trial in Bavaria for removing a crucifix from his courtroom at the request of an asylum seeker. The Afghan man is suspected of threatening to kill a fellow countryman for converting to Christianity. Peter Oliver has more details.
This judge in the Bavarian Alps has found himself in the eye of a storm. That's after he ordered that a crucifix be removed from his courtroom during the trial of an Afghan asylum applicant accused of trying to kill an
immigrant's trial.
Who converted to Christianity. It's a move that's caused furore in the strongly Catholic state as well as in German tabloid media. The judge says he made the move in order to show religious tolerance.
How can I educate the defendant to move away from his beliefs? He thinks jihad exists between Christians and Islamists, and so I did not think it wise to condemn him under the cross.
I do not care if there is a cross or not. When the judge addressed this issue in court, I did not really understand the problem.
Bosses in the Bavarian Ministry of Justice say this should never have been an issue in the first place.
The presence of crosses in courtrooms does not prevent the state from upholding religious and ideological neutrality.
Religious rights for Christian converts in Germany is a hot issue, particularly in places like Maisbach. The town on the border with Austria is where many refugees and migrants either arrived or at least passed through in 2015. And the move by Judge Schmidt has prompted ferocious backlash on social media.
Dear Bavarian people, this is a slap in the face of all Christians. Do you still want to trample on your Christian values?
There are judges who leave me at a loss for words. Such an irony. In the trial of Afghan Islamists, Judge Klaus-Jürgen Schmidt takes crucifix from the wall of the courtroom.
The sophisticated Islamization in this country continues. Judge Klaus-Jürgen Schmidt, are you insane? Such a disgrace.
This story.
I'm telling you, you're going to see most of Europe within 5 years in Muslim, Islam, mayhem. Mayhem. Mayhem.
Comes as the trial of a different failed asylum applicant from Afghanistan is underway in a nearby town in southern Germany. In that case, a 38-year-old woman was brutally stabbed to death in front of her small children. The prosecution say that the motive behind the killing was that she had converted to Christianity. That trial is expected to continue for several more days.
Pay attention.
Before Air Force Two ever sit down in the Middle East, the Vice President talked with CBN's David Brody about the reason for his trip.
If the world knows nothing else, the world should know this. Under President Donald Trump, America stands with Israel. And we'll be
Pence, you're an ass kisser.
Message. It was 70 years ago.
God forbid this guy becomes president. We're in deep shit.
In a miracle,
he'll say yes to anything, this guy.
Back into existence in its ancient homeland, and every day.
Oh my God!
Cherished that accomplishment.
He's like a robot.
We'll be there to celebrate that.
And celebrate he did, earning high praise from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
This is the first time that I stand.
Another dirty one.
Can say those three words. Israel's capital, Jerusalem.
Pence became the first U.S. vice president ever to be invited to address the Knesset. He kept his cool when Israeli Arab demonstrators protested the U.S. policy change toward Jerusalem.
It is deeply humbling for me to stand before this vibrant democracy.
He shared his heart, along with his reverence for the scriptures pertaining to Israel, and firmly restated the new U.S. policy.
Jerusalem is Israel's capital. And as such, President Trump has directed the State Department to immediately begin preparations to move the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Israeli President Reuven Rivlin called the Vice President a mensch, a very high compliment in Yiddish, meaning a person of integrity. Emotional visits to Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial, and his prayers at the Western Wall sealed the visit like few others in the history of American diplomacy.
And the reason is that this administration is putting its embassy where its mouth is. For years and years, U.S. presidents and vice presidents, secretaries of state have all said, given lip service to Jerusalem as being the capital of Israel, but we never put it into practice. And this administration is saying that it will put it into practice. This has the potential to be the most significant visit by a vice president to any nation in recent U.S. history.
Pence also promised change is coming to the U.S.-signed nuclear deal with Iran.
Here we
that
come.
Will put Washington on a collision course with European allies who are doing big business with Iran. And with boycotts and curses, Palestinian leaders have set a hostile course against Washington on the international stage. But the coming debate will show the U.S. and Israel largely united over the city King David made his capital.
Goes.
Yes, we have a proposal for peace. It's a great proposal for the Palestinians. I think it's a very good proposal for Israel. It covers a lot of the things that were over the years.
A large part of New World Order leaders at Davos. Okay? You're talking about New World Order mayhem there. Okay? Well, since the word tonight is mayhem. Davos is full of New World Order globalists. Okay? And I'm telling you now, Iran is our target. Iran is the target for war.
Discussed and agreed on. But the fact is, and I think you know this better than anybody, there were never any deals that came close because Jerusalem, he could never get past Jerusalem. So when people said, oh, I sent it back, I didn't send it back, I helped it. Because by taking it off the table, that was the toughest issue. And Israel will pay for that. Look, Israel, something's going to happen. They'll do something that's going to be a very good thing. But they want to make peace, and I hope the Palestinians
want to
make peace. And if they do, everybody's going to be very happy in the end. We'll see what happens, Steve. And I spoke to some of the people involved, and I said, did you ever talk about the vast amounts of funds, money, that we give to the Palestinians? We give, hundreds of millions of dollars. And they said, we never talk. Well, we do talk about it.
Donald Trump, for whatever reason it may be, does not understand why we give money to other countries. Okay? He just does not understand why the United States give aid to many countries. Okay? And it helps with our stabilization in other regions as well. So it's not just like, he truly misses why we give money to other countries and support other countries. Now, I'm all for cutting off taking care of everybody else and not ourselves and putting more money at home, our own infrastructures, our own children, our own families, our own protection, safety, border, everything. All for that. But you don't cut off aid and that to countries that we use this for stabilization. So there's a lot. Yeah, he's learning all right, Joyce. He's learning all right. I don't think people understand in this country what's going on. You will. People will understand. People will understand clearly, I would say, by August the latest. By August the latest. Trust me. People are in for a huge smash in the face. And those who did not listen or pay attention, oh well, I told you what's coming and what's already happening, and the chips are going to fall where they go, and that's all I have to say. Not even arguing about it anymore. Not worth it.
And when they disrespected us a week ago by not allowing our great vice president to see them, and we give them hundreds of millions of dollars in aid and support, tremendous numbers.
He doesn't understand why.
That money is on the table, and that money's not going to them unless they sit down and negotiate peace.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm ready for peace. I explained that. I explained that to President Trump. I reaffirmed my willingness and Israel's willingness to engage in an effort to achieve peace with the
lying piece of shit.
Advanced by his very able team. We are interested in pursuing that. Thank you. Thank you.
It's been about 5 years since major news outlets started hyping each and every supermoon, so it's understandable if you've stopped paying attention. Still, the one Wednesday, January 31st, may be worth your while. A supermoon is simply when the moon is full, while it's also closest to Earth. Technically, it's the biggest and brightest the moon can look, but it's hard to notice that difference with the naked eye. But this one will also happen during a total lunar eclipse, when the moon passes through Earth's shadow. The shadow turns the moon a rusty red color, which is usually nicknamed a blood moon, making this a super blood moon. This will also be the second full moon in the same month, aka a blue moon. So what you'll see Wednesday is a super blue blood moon, the first in 150 years. Here's the bad news. You'll have to get up early Wednesday to see it. The best views are all around sunrise or earlier. NASA has a list of ideal viewing times for each time zone.
Playing for time in Calais' industrial zone, a place where asylum seekers have flocked to in the hope
mayhem
of
in
escape
Europe,
the limbo they face day
refugees.
in, day out. While they are here, they are trapped. Many of them have been here for months, sleeping rough wherever they can.
You are sleeping without any food. I mean, in the road maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's
right,
yeah. Because it's the police disturbs us. You know? Yeah, this is not life. It's not life. Because living in the forest is we have human beings.
So this is the place, the location where one of the food distribution points was supposed to occur on Thursday afternoon. As you can see, authorities are there and they've stopped it from happening, and that's incurred a lot of anger from those who've gathered here to be able to get some food. For months, the riot police have been a regular presence here, as are the standoffs with migrants desperate to escape. Some hope, perhaps, has been provided by the joint treaty signed by the French President and the British Prime Minister last week.
A particularly important point of this
Okay, I'm going to interrupt this feed, and this is why. I'm shutting off comments in here, okay? I'm going to make something very clear to every member here and to the public. I am neither for Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. You can support whoever you like. But I'm still going to bring you the truth about Trump and Hillary. And I'm going to be straight with you. Okay? We are in serious trouble. You don't have to believe me. Because of Trump. Okay? Because of New World Order. Because of shadow government. And because I could list the endless list of why this presidency is so different than others, including that of the firing and the changing and the madness in the White House and the drama on a regular basis. This is not good for America. It is not stable for America. The dollar is declining, and it's going to get worse as China and Russia continue to ramp up. Okay? People have become confused as to what is good for a country and what is bad for a country and what America stands for and what this republic was built on. And you have division, hatred, and the like. You can praise Donald Trump if you want. That's the freedom of speech. You're entitled to your opinion. Okay? You can praise Hillary Clinton. I don't care if that's your choice. But the truth will always be the truth. And when you see what's coming, it's already in the works, you're going to understand what a constitutional crisis is in this country. For the first time, I mean, a major, major constitutional crisis is brewing. And it's big. Okay? And that's all I'm going to say. That's it. Stop. One thing I will say, stop treating politicians, presidents, like gods. Trump is not God. And Trump is, it's very sad where people have come to be in this country with this extreme far-right madness for this man. He is not God. He is a politician, president, controlled. Everybody thinks Donald Trump's not controlled by deep state as he sits at Davos, Right? Okay. As he's best friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay. I feel the same for Israeli people as I do for the United States because they are being lied to by their leaders just like Americans are. And being controlled by a much bigger picture. People, if you by now, especially watching me and the evidence that I've shown you, do not understand who's at the top, no matter who's president, and who's at the bottom of the pyramid, no matter who's president, then there's something wrong. There is something wrong. People need to learn to control this situation and not allow them at the top to control the situation. And Donald Trump is not who you think he is. And I don't care who likes the video, hates my video. Every day I could sit here and do a 5-hour show and show you everything that man has said almost to what it is now is either some type of lie, has not, come to fruition, and everybody will blame deep state and Congress and, the Democrats and everything else. It's always everybody else's fault but Donald Trump's fault. Okay? So you keep following that and go right ahead. I want to take care of Americans, and what's good for America is truth, okay? And survival, because for the political, the environmental environment of this planet is drastically changing. I will not state it anymore. You must have rocks in your heads if you do not see what's coming and what is changing, what is happening. And I don't like rude people. And I don't like drama. Okay? I don't like drama, and I don't like people who create drama. I despise it. I despise it. DC is a circus. If you guys think that's good, what's going on in DC since Donald Trump became president, great. Stock market's up, wonderful. All this, okay. The drama and the bullshit that goes on from our representatives in DC, from that White House and everything around it, and the Clinton side too, and the FBI side with that, and the DOJ with that, the corruption, the dirt, the lies from both sides are just, any American that wants to stick up for either one of those people, whether it's Trump or Hillary, you have rocks in your head. Both candidates, horrible. Two-party division, divide. That's it. There is no other benefit. And they know it. And when furthermore people start getting arrested, we'll see who stays on ship, meaning indicted. We'll see who stays on the Trump side with the Republicans in the House and the Senate. They will jump off a sinking ship. No drama. Why do people always have to believe it's up to the politicians to change their country, or it's up to the politicians to change their city, or it's up to the politicians to change their town? It's up to the people to change their town, their city, their country, their state, their country. And people are starting to get that and do it themselves. It's up to people. No matter where you live in the world, it's up to the people to change the situation. There's more of us than there are them. It's like, come on. Ridiculous. Listen, I can sit here and go through everything that's gone on in the past 3 months about Saudi Prince, Trump this, Trump that. None of it came true. Everything that was said out there is going to 10,000 indictments against Hillary Clinton. I'm still waiting. Still waiting. But yet Jeff Sessions, those indictments are for gang members, drug dealers, everything. They're on a massive cleanup in this country, which I believe in, what Sessions is doing. It's not normal behavior.
Drastically reduce the time limits from 6 months to 30 days for adults, and from 6 months to 25 days for unaccompanied minors.
The treaty is intended to improve the management of the border on both sides of the English Channel, but there is little evidence at...
France and Germany create this problem by accepting in thousands and thousands of migrants, right? And now they want to make a treaty and a policy to fix it and do whatever. They're even paying them to get out. They created this great New World Order plan that they had is backfiring on them, and it's too late. It's out of control, and they're going to continue it anyway. It's going to continue. They're going to continue this great migration. It doesn't matter. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop.
As to how it will be done, and whether it would expedite urgent asylum cases to reunite them with relatives living in the UK. For those working on the front line of this crisis, the expectations have led to rumours that asylum seekers only need come to Calais to get to the UK, and that's led to larger numbers of people turning up here.
I do feel people have false hope because of this misunderstanding and because there's been no effort to explain any of the changes. There's been no effort beforehand to explain to people what asylum entails in France.
Despite the challenges, the young, the desperate try to find any way they can to reach Britain, no matter how dangerous. The police attempt to stop them climbing onto lorries bound for England, but they still take the chance.
Madness.
Any risk they feel is worth it to leave behind a life in France that hangs in the balance. Sonia Gallego, Al Jazeera, Calais.
David Costa's been sleeping on the streets of London for more than a year. It's a bleak existence.
It's not easy, it's really hard. It's you gotta deal with the cold, you gotta deal with people, you know, that aren't nice sometimes, you know.
He lost his job as a carpenter and couldn't afford to pay for housing. He's now worried about his mental health.
I just want accommodation, a roof over my head, and maybe get you know, see a doctor to get my head back together and go back to work, you know.
In one of the wealthiest countries in the world, more and more people are now living on the street. Many are struggling with addiction, mental or physical illness. Others are escaping violence and abuse. But an increasing number are here simply because they can't afford to live anywhere. The situation is made worse by a critical shortage of affordable housing and cuts to social welfare benefits. According to the government's latest figures, there are more than 4,500 people sleeping rough on England's streets. But the scourge of homelessness doesn't end here. Hidden away in bedsits and temporary emergency accommodation are thousands more homeless people of all ages.
The entire homeless population of Great Britain is around about 250,000 people. Rough sleeping is the most visible and I have to say the most outrageous form of homelessness in terms of it being absolutely unacceptable. The average age of death is just 47 years old. You're 17 times more likely to be attacked on the street than anybody else.
The government says it's committed to halving rough sleeping in 4 years and eliminating it altogether in a decade. But this is not an isolated story. Homelessness is on the rise in every European country except Finland. In the Greek capital Athens, as many as 1 in 70 residents are homeless. And in Paris, the number of people sleeping rough has reached critical levels. In Finland, when a person becomes homeless, they're given stable accommodation first, rather than slowly progressing through levels of temporary housing. The British government's planning to trial a similar scheme in the UK, but those forced to sleep rough need real change now. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera, London.
Oiva Bridget has 5 children, and in a month she's expecting another one. But she's been forced to flee her home in southern Cameroon with her family to escape a military crackdown. They had to walk for a day to cross the border into Nigeria.
Our people started fighting, so I run with my children. Now as I run with my children like this, I'm suffering. No place for me to sleep, no clothes for me to wear. And now I'm pregnant, so there's no clothes. When I will deliver the pikin and I will wear the clothes, so I have nothing.
Oiva and her children are among about 7,000 English-speaking Cameroonians in this camp in Benue. English speakers like her make up less than a fifth of their country's 23 million people. They say they have been marginalized by the French-speaking majority and demanded independence, but they didn't get what they asked for.
our problem of Anglophone started on that 1st October when we hosted our flag, the Amazonian flag. The government of Cameroon was not free, was not happy with this declaration of our independence. So he ordered his military. The God's youths were beaten. Some were even shot to death. Some were injured, wounded.
Shot to death.
On
nice.
that 1st October, there was no peace in our community.
Local officials say there could now be more than 40,000 Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria. Camps like these are growing here and supplies are running out.
Most people here are yet to have breakfast. They're not even sure of supper. When they left their homes, they were only concerned about their safety.
Over 10,000, that is a big number already for Benue State government to be feeding alone. Do you understand? So there is that challenge of food. We have been giving food, but that is not enough. And then there is a challenge of water. So there is need for potable water. Need for that water to be treated before they drink. And then the challenge of shelter. At the moment, we have kept them in a school. The schools are resumed.
The refugees present here has strained relations between Nigeria and Cameroon. Cameroonian military officials accuse Nigeria of sheltering insurgents. They say they want to establish an independent homeland for Cameroon's English-speaking minority. But the refugees here say what they want is enough food and water and peace. Wendy Abo, TRT World, Benue, Nigeria.
This is the only source of drinking water in the Dalmas neighborhood of Port-au-Prince. A 20-litre bucket of water costs 16 cents.
Hey, another U.S. nightmare created, Clinton nightmare after the earthquake created as well. Left these poor people, robbed them of their money, the Clinton Foundation, and left these Haitians, with no place to live and that, and they were supposed to develop all these communities and all the above. Robbed them blind. Robbed them blind. Clinton Foundation and those attached there too, thus the Clintons, they will get theirs. Okay? They will get theirs. It's coming. It's coming.
Blanchard is one of few Haitians who can afford the daily ritual.
We'd like to get drinking water. We'd like them to build a tank so we can get water because water's life. Without it, we can't live. We need the state to build a bathroom. There's no bathroom here.
But those who cannot afford the 16 cents for clean water come here.
16 cents.
It's contaminated, but they fill up their
16 cents for water. They can't afford 16 cents. 16 cents for water. Water. And Americans think they got it so bad, huh? America has become so isolated from the rest of the world deliberately, and they've deliberately isolated Americans from what's really going on in the world. And most Americans don't care, but see, what they don't understand is it affects us every which way, what goes on in the world. Okay? And mankind is mankind. Human beings are human beings. People seem to forget we're all from the same DNA.
Containers and drink it anyway, despite the threat from waterborne cholera. More than 500,000 Haitians have had the disease.
Talk about population control?
We need water. If the people don't have water, what will we do? This tank doesn't work. Water is health. Water is life. There are people who don't have that. When this tank worked, we had water.
It all flows back to this. Haiti's devastating earthquake.
Pay attention.
220,000 people died and infrastructure was destroyed. International aid agencies flew in to build temporary infrastructure, including water tanks. 8 years on, they're breaking down as the wait to rebuild infrastructure drags on.
Yep. While the Clinton Foundation robbed, Jesus, millions and millions of dollars leaving these people home. It goes all the way back to 2010 with Haiti. Okay, and it's not just the Clinton Foundation, it's the United States in general. Okay, with what's going on with Haiti. And other countries as well. You still have Puerto Rico with almost 500,000 people without power. And I'm trying to tell you, it's not going to matter. Puerto Rico's going to get slammed again, and so are the other Caribbean islands and West Indies. Thump. Just watch. Guarantee it. Just watch.
Less than half of Haitians in rural areas have access to clean water, and only a quarter have a toilet.
I'm waiting for the international community and for non-profit organizations to help us. Only they can make something for us.
But the international community has been distracted by other disasters. The UN mission has pulled out and aid has dried up. Yet Haiti remains one of the poorest nations in the world.
The Clintons robbed people across the globe of donations, as did the Red Cross and everyone else. And this is what's left for these people from 2010. Gail, it's not about the Haitian government keeping the money. The Clinton Foundation and these other organizations promised to rebuild homes, infrastructure, and everything from the earthquake, and they have not. They have not done it. Yes, there's corruption in the Haitian government, but they haven't been given that much money to do it anyway. It's the other organizations that were supposed to come in, like the Clinton Foundation, and build homes for these people, new structures for these, and infrastructure and things like that.
Charlotte Ballas, Al Jazeera.
About 30 Somalia and Ethiopian refugees drowned off the coast of southern Yemen. The United Nations Refugee and Migration Agencies announced January 26th their boat capsized and gunfire was used on its passengers. They also said the boat was believed to be operated by smugglers who tried to take the group to the country of Djibouti in Africa while trying to extort money from them. The agency said they were working with the Yemeni Coast Guard to find out what exactly happened and that they were, quote, outraged by the deaths. Last year, many migrants from Somalia and Ethiopia died after human traffickers forced them on overcrowded boats to Yemen. The country is in an ongoing civil war that is displayed.
I have a big show coming after the second episode of Vegas about human trafficking and pedophilia rings. Serious show. It's going to be a 3-part series, in depth. Okay? It's something I started working on a year ago, and now I'm going to bring it to fruition.
Many. The World Bank estimates about 60% of Yemen's population is food insecure, and about 80% are in need of humanitarian assistance. For United News International, I'm Rachel Lane.
At least 40 people have been killed in Afghanistan and around 150 wounded after a suicide blast in Kabul.
Huge bomb.
Officials say the huge bomb was hidden in an ambulance and exploded in an area near foreign embassies and government buildings. The death toll is expected to rise. The vehicle is reported to have detonated in an area closed to public transport after being driven past a police checkpoint. The Taliban says it was behind the attack. The bombing comes a week after the group killed more than 20 people at a luxury hotel in the Afghan capital.
보시는 바와 같이 오늘 화재는 07시 35분에 세종병원 1층 응급실에서 화재가 최초에 발생한 것으로 저희들이 확인하였습니다. 그리고 1층에서 2층으로 화재가 확산되는 것을 소방력에 의해서 저지를 했습니다. 그와 같은 관계로
Now everybody please remember, I see a lot of people from the last story in Afghanistan about the bomb from the Taliban. Pay attention. ISIS, Taliban, all of them backed, created RCIA, Israel's Mossad, and even the Saudis. Okay? All these terrorist groups created to create havoc, fear, a reason for war, and the like. When we stop creating these organizations and feeding them and giving them weapons, then, or doing what Russia's been doing with Syria, and I mean just outright killing them, getting rid of them and their cells. We have been proven to keep helping ISIS in Syria. Fact.
으로 화재가 확산되는 것은 저희 소방력에 의해서 저지를 했습니다.
추가적인 피해가 발생하지 않도록 구조된 인원에 대해 필요한 의료 조치를 취하여 추가 사망자 발생을 최소화하도록 만전을 기할 것.
On January 25th, ISIS units attacked positions of the Syrian Arab Army, the SAA, in the villages of Kishma and Garaiba in the province of Deir ez-Zor. According to the ISIS-linked news agency Amaq, ISIS killed several armed soldiers and destroyed 2 battle tanks with anti-tank guided missiles.
From the U.S.
However, the terrorist group did not overrun the SAA defense and was forced to retreat. According to the Syrian state-run media, 25 ISIS members were killed and several vehicles were destroyed in the clashes. ISIS seeks to seize some area in the Euphrates Valley in order to lift the siege from its members besieged in the Homs Desert. The Turkish Armed Air Force, the TAF, and the Turkish-backed Free Syrian Army, the TFSA, captured 7 members of the Kurdish People's Protection Units, the YPG, during clashes in the Afrin area, according to Turkish media. In turn, the YPG claimed that it had captured 16 Turkish service members. However, these persons are likely just members of the TFSA. The YPG also said that it has lost 18 members in the clashes so far, while the TAF claims that over 300 YPG members have been killed. Both sides provide contradicting reports about the casualties and the situation in the Afrin area. The propaganda is an important part of the Turkish-Kurdish standoff in Afrin.
Propaganda.
According to Deputy Chief of General Staff of the TFSA, Haytham Afisi, a 10,000-strong force is already prepared for a military operation against Kurdish forces in the city of Manjib. Afisi said that the Manjib operation will be started after the TFSA and the TAF finish their operation against YPG-YPJ forces in Afrin. Manjib is not the final destination. We won't stop until Hasaka, Ain Issa, Ain al-Arab, Ras al-Ain, al-Malikiya, and Tal Abyad are purged of terror, he said. This statement clearly follows the official rhetoric of the Turkish leadership. President Erdogan and others have repeatedly noted that Manjib may become a target of the Turkish military operation. The Democratic Federation of Northern Syria and Afrin area released an official statement in which it called on the SAA to counter the TAF attack on Afrin and to defend the Syrian border. The statement clearly contradicts previous statements of Kurdish officials and may indicate some shift in the YPG attitude towards the Damascus.
Here we
go. The U.S.
go.
Air Force has announced a round of upgrades to the U.S.'s largest non-nuclear bomb, a 30,000-pound bunker buster. On January 24th, the Air Force confirmed that the giant bomb, known as the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or GBU-57, had just completed its 4th upgrade. According to an Air Force spokeswoman, the modification, quote, has improved the performance against hard and deeply buried targets. At nearly 21 feet long, the GBU-57 was designed to attack reinforced concrete buildings. It can be used to hit nuclear or missile factories hundreds of feet underground. The bunker buster, which is manufactured by Boeing, can only be carried by the B-2 stealth bomber. 3 B-2 bombers were deployed to Guam this month. The Air Force declined to say if the GBU-57 was aboard. For United News International in Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mang.
Ambassador to the United Nations, having fundamentally rejected a so-called peace proposal which calls for a new constitution in the war-battered country.
This unofficial paper is rejected every word and sentence, and it is not worth the ink that is printed on, because the Syrian people will not and do not accept solutions which come down on parachutes or on the backs of tanks.
Bashar Jafari criticized the U.S., Britain, France, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia for drawing up such a proposal. He also blamed them for the bloodshed in Syria.
I agree.
Underlined the need for inter-Syria dialogue to resolve the years-long conflict in his country. He made the comment
they will not leave Syria alone.
Of the ninth round,
the New World Order. They will not.
Talks in the Austrian capital Vienna. Previous rounds of talks failed to yield concrete results.
Well, meanwhile, the UK's Defence Secretary has accused Russia of a plot to damage the British economy and kill thousands of people.
Oh, my
Gavin
God.
Williamson made those comments in an interview with British newspaper The Daily Telegraph.
What they're looking at doing is they're going to be thinking, how can we just cause so much pain to Britain, damage its economy, rip its infrastructure apart, actually cause thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths, but actually have an element of creating total chaos within the country?
Well, Russia's defence ministry has responded to those claims, saying they belong in a comic book or a Monty Python sketch. Well, Williamson's remarks appeared in the same week the UK's military called for more funding to tackle the alleged Russia threat. There's also been media speculation about possible Russia cyber attacks and even nuclear war, but it's unclear what these claims are actually based on.
All
International
propaganda.
Affairs commentator Jonathan Steele told us the UK's defence secretary is just scaremongering.
It's absurd to create a scare like this out of absolutely nothing. You have to distinguish between military capabilities and political intentions. Just because Russia has a fleet, an air force, missiles, an army, it doesn't mean that Russia is suddenly going to attack us. It just reveals the fact that, unfortunately, as a result of this increasingly bellicose political atmosphere between NATO countries, Russia is taking extra precautions and testing its own reserves and possibilities. What we need is common sense, we need dialogue, we need engagement, and to discuss the differences that there are between us, rather than assuming because there are differences that somehow the other country is an enemy.
For the first time since the Vietnam War, the U.S. plans to send an aircraft carrier to the Southeast Asian country. On January 25th, during a visit to Hanoi, U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis revealed that a U.S. aircraft carrier will make a port visit to Da Nang in March. Da Nang was the landing site for the first American troops to arrive in Vietnam in 1965. Such a visit could bring the largest number of U.S. forces to Vietnam since the conflict ended in 1975. In the years after the conflict, Vietnam and the U.S. have become strong military allies. The visit is likely to anger China, which has been critical of U.S. moves to flex its military muscle in the region. For United News International in Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
Now, in other news, South Korea and the United States have wrapped up their latest round of high-level defense talks, while the Koreas are interacting for North Korea's participation in the upcoming Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Seoul and Washington reaffirmed that their ultimate goal is the regime's denuclearization. Jung-hee.
It's not happening unless you go to war.
Amid continued visits and talks between the two Koreas, the defense chiefs of Seoul and Washington met on Friday to reaffirm their ironclad alliance and denuclearization goal. South Korean Defense Minister Song Young-moo and U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis sat down for talks at U.S. Pacific Command in Hawaii, just 3 months after their last meeting in late October. The U.S. defense chief welcomed the recent resumption of inter-Korean talks, but at the same time, Mattis and his South Korean counterpart confirmed their shared goal of the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That is, the talks on the Olympics should serve to make North Korea change its path and come to the negotiation table, but not detract from the ultimate goal of denuclearization. Song and Mattis also saw eye to eye on the need to strengthen military readiness against Pyongyang while maintaining strong support for diplomatic solutions.
This threat remains diplomacy-led, backed up with military options available to ensure that our diplomats are understood to be speaking from a position of strength.
Mattis reaffirmed Washington's ironclad security commitment to South Korea, including extended deterrence, and stressed North Korea will face an overwhelming response from the U.S. if the regime ever attacked one of its allies. Song and Mattis also emphasized that any attempt to crack the Seoul-Washington alliance will fail. They agreed to meet face-to-face as often as possible. While there was speculation the talks would set the schedule for the postponed joint military drills Key Resolve and Full Eagle, that was not the case. The exact schedules remain unknown, but the Allies' military authorities are firm that the drills will be held as normal immediately after the Pyeongchang Olympics wrap up in March.
There we go.
Atomic scientists and policy experts warn the world is at its closest to a nuclear war since 1953. One America's Christian Rose explores the eerie side of rising nuclear tensions.
It's 2 minutes to midnight for the first time in 65 years as the world is bracing for a nuclear annihilation. A panel of nuclear experts and policy analysts calling back to the Manhattan Project and known as the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists say global leaders have failed to address the looming threat of the spread of nuclear weapons over the past few years, bringing the man-made apocalypse ever closer. Subsequently, the scientists moved the main arm of the doomsday clock 30 seconds closer to midnight, which symbolically means the end of human civilization.
I want to emphasize the historical significance of today. The doomsday clock is closer to midnight than it's ever been in the lifetime of almost everyone in this room.
The bulletin cites North Korea's nuclear progress and the war of words between Pyongyang and Washington as the main development of the past year, moving the pendulum of doom. The scientists say a probability of an accidental nuclear launch or an incident related to weapons of mass destruction is now higher due to rising global tensions. Last time the world was at 2 minutes to midnight was back in 1953, following the test of thermonuclear devices in the US and the Soviet Union, complicated by an internal political struggle in the Bolshevik Empire, following the death of Joseph Stalin in March of that year.
To call the world's nuclear situation dire is to understate the danger and its immediacy. We considered the ossified state of arms control negotiations and non-proliferation agreements, as well as new testing undertaken by North Korea, nuclear exercises built into Russia's military plans, and an enhanced commitment to nuclear weapons in Pakistan, India, and China.
Those scientists also say a longer-term threat to global security is the ongoing tensions between Russia and the US, which started back in 2014 following the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine, sparking the first major war in Europe since 1945. Among other factors bringing humankind closer to midnight, the bulletin is citing territorial disputes in the South China Sea, which involves Communist China and US regional allies. Additionally, the atomic scientists say a decline in global diplomacy is a factor contributing to many nations' growing confidence a nuclear option could be an ultimate solution after all.
For the first time in many years, in fact, no U.S.-Russia nuclear arms control negotiations are underway. And if the draft U.S. nuclear posture review is any guide to U.S. policy, there will be no U.S.-Russian nuclear arms control negotiations for the foreseeable future. Instead, we could see a return to a nuclear arms race.
At the Cold War's most recent peak back in 1984, the doomsday clock stood at 3 minutes to midnight, despite a year prior the U.S. and Soviet Union narrowly avoided a mutual exchange of nuclear strikes. This was made possible due to a radar glitch in the USSR, as well as a NATO exercise, Able Archer 83, and the Soviet downing of a South Korean passenger jet in the Far East. They suggest there is little chance to rewind the clock anytime soon, as the Russian invasion of eastern Ukraine continues. North Korea and Iran are adamant to move forward their nuclear and ballistic missile programs, and the advancement and global trade of mass destruction technology gains momentum.
The danger of nuclear conflagration is not the only reason the clock has been moved forward, as my colleagues have described. This danger looms at a time when there's been a loss of trust in political institutions, in the media, in science, and in facts themselves.
These factors point to a highly volatile state of international affairs, as the looming threat of a nuclear holocaust suggests the time of globalist world order may be running short. Christian Rose, One American News.
A touching embrace, not a moment too soon.
I wish I had done it years and years ago.
This is the moment Logan Borden surprised his stepdad with adoption papers.
Wait, I was nervous. My stomach was in knots.
Logan has been raised by Rick Morse since he was a baby. Logan says they're best friends.
He's everything to me. He's somebody I can go to for anything ever, whether it's bad in my life or good in my life. He doesn't treat me different.
Now that's the true meaning of being a father.
Now I want to get into a special, and I'm going to end with this. It's about 30 minutes about crop circles. I've always been fascinated by crop circles, and what I consider the best Planet X or crop circle video to date, I'm going to show you and share with you. And it's important to pay attention to this because crop circles are no accident, okay? And we're not alone here. For all of you that think that these are done by, watch this video and understand what the recent ones are telling the world. And most people don't pay attention to this in their busy schedules or don't care. But this is very fascinating and serious stuff here, okay? That's not my sound, by the way. That's the video that's playing. I'm trying to make it sound a little better for everybody. They're saying, assuming this is a message from someone trying to contact us, we have to ask ourselves 3 questions. What, why, and how? First message, what planetary event could this be, and how would they explain it to us? What is this? 5 planets aligned. They say, but what does a spiral have to do with planets aligning? Could it represent a continuous movement through time? But planetary alignment only lasts a few days. Could it be that the alignment is marking a specific point in time of this spiral's continuous movement? That's Earth. The circle around Earth is the moon's orbit. That's why this is represented as Earth, and that's what this means. The moon is circulating around the moon. Pay attention. Watch this. Question. If suddenly Saturn jumped from its orbit to the moon's orbit, wouldn't we see it a lot larger than we see it on its natural orbit? And planets can jump orbits, just so everybody knows. This means it's logical to assume that the closer this object comes to our planet, the larger will be its representation on the diagram. Okay? Pay attention. We have a date, May 23rd, 2011, date of the alignment. We have a reasonable logic for the different sides of the same object. What if the 5 groups represent 5 stages of this object's orbit after the year of alignment, which is 2011? Okay, just keep watching. I'm reading that because some people say they can't see it. Why is Jupiter represented the same size as Mars? Why is Venus so much smaller than Earth? Why is Saturn bigger than Jupiter when in fact it's the other way around? What do these discrepancies represent? Could the smaller planet actually be Mercury instead of Venus? Could the outermost planet be more visible on Earth than Venus? Is the outer planet really Saturn? If the sun is part of the diagram, then what is the object with the same size on the opposite side of the diagram? Another star. And I had previously discussed this, explaining about the binary twin system and how it works and the alignment. What they're saying at the bottom is all we know is 5 planets are aligned. 3 of these planets are terrestrial. 2 are gas giants. That means the sun on the one and the other. Now, don't just at this date. Just don't worry about the date right now. Just follow what they're saying here. Only half of Venus facing Earth is illuminated by the sun. Only half of Venus is visible from Earth, and mainly from the day side, which means hard to see, representing it smaller supports our visibility theory. The side of Uranus facing Earth is fully illuminated. From Earth, Uranus will be easier to see than Venus. Its fully illuminated side is facing planet Earth's night side, representing it larger supports our visibility theory. Boom! It's another crop circle. There's the moon. Earth's magnetic field. Due to its elliptical form, this probably represents Earth, because this is over here, Earth's magnetic field. It would seem to tell us that this planet will invade our magnetic field, coming so close that it wouldn't miss it even if we want it. Forget the date. Like I'm telling you, just listen to this, because everybody gets the date wrong, but this alignment in what is happening, just please, I'll answer at the end. And again, forget the date. Could this represent a timeline from the time Planet X appears from behind the sun? November 7, 2015. We know that did not happen. So, to its closest position to the Earth, meaning on the date. Like I said, this is almost over. Okay? Just hang in there with me. Just watch what this is saying. And then I'm going to explain to you why the year doesn't matter. That the time doesn't matter, but the diagram does matter in what's going on. Okay? It's almost over. Let's take the diagrams that were just shown, and I'm going to go back in the video to bring the one in particular up to explain. Now, I believe what they're saying is correct about what is happening and how the other binary twin, i.e. the Nemesis and the Nibiru system. However, as I have said for some time, and I'm not a big fan of Nancy Teeter, who speaks to, she allegedly speaks to the aliens. However, several people have come up with, and what they're saying, that the planet, its system, the binary twin, okay, that comes in line, and what I believe, and this is why you're seeing the sun and why we need a sun simulator, is that the Nemesis system, when it came into alignment, like you're seeing, is now trapped here. In other words, it's in limbo. It's being what they call cupped from the sun's magnetic field. Okay? Magnetic, not gravitational, magnetic. So, when you see here, where the two suns, okay, i.e. binary twin, our sun has a binary twin. NASA's even come out and said so. That's i.e. Nemesis. So what I'm trying to say is, and with the anomalies that we're having with the sun, the earth, ramping up, even getting, let's just say that this happened the way they said it did, and it's been stuck, sucking energy from our sun. Okay, the other binary twin, as I've discussed in previous shows, is sucking off our sun, which would work in physics. Okay, and that's the Nibiru system with Nemesis. They're in line, binary twin, and it comes in line, and it's behind the sun. And let's just say it gets trapped there because it's connected and cupped. It's in this cupping, what they call a cupping, so that it's in our system and it's stuck there. However, somewhere along the line here, it has to become uncupped. And then it releases, and when it releases, swinging close to the Earth as it passes and does what? Ricochets out past the sun on its elliptical orbit and goes right out. Okay? And I believe that's what's happening now. That it's in our system, and that's why you're seeing lots of rockets and lead satellites and all this. They're observing something in space. They're doing something to protect and fix, because tomorrow night I'm going to show you what's going on with our magnetic field as we speak. This is a great new article and information that I've come across. And it's affecting our sun as we know. They're using a sun simulator as we know. And it's draining our sun, okay? This down period is much longer and stronger than ever. So now it's in this tug of war, and it's caught here. It's called cupping, okay? Because everything works off magnetic connection. Earth is magnetically connected to the sun. The moon is magnetically connected to the earth. That's what keeps the earth from just not going whomp out there. The earth, the moon, and most moons keep planets stable, believe it or not. It's like it keeps them in a safe orbit. Okay? So, with this cupping going on, and that's why you see pictures of the two suns. You saw more last year as it came in and in and in and in, and then you see the line, and you're seeing the sun all wacky, shapes and sizes. The sun similar, and this larger object there. You're seeing the radiation has gone up on the planet. They're chemtrailing heavy. Okay. Major earthquakes, volcanoes happening, and they're going up further and further and further between now and 2023. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, let's just say the brown dwarf gets fired up. It's loaded with, energy. And now it releases, swings, and ricochets past the sun. That's where you get energy to go back out into orbit. Okay. We even use this for spaceships. Okay. You ricochet off the sun. Foop. Okay. Into the orbit. It releases from this cupping stage that it's in. And then it has to swing past Earth. Could cause a major pole shift as it ricochets back out. So thus, we don't know when it's going to become uncupped, but looking at the information that I've studied and watching others, I believe it's in the 2023-24 year, that time period. And until then, this is going to continue to ramp up, because as our sun gets further drained and our core heats up more and the magnetic field is changing, which it is rapidly changing, you're going to see the acute weather, the acute planetary changes, the earthquakes ramp up, the volcanoes ramp up, and then when this thing finally uncups itself, so to speak, pulls itself from this gravitational pull, because it will. Why? Because I believe the sun is going to get so drained from the binary twin that our sun's not going to have enough force with the with the magnetic field connection to hold it anymore. So it's like it gets charged up, ricochets back out, and whoom, it's gone. And this is a binary sun system. And that's why I say we're about 5 years off. Somewhere in there. About 5 years, 7 max off from this shift, this full shift. I believe the governments are working to stop this shift, the magnetic shift especially. They're even talking now about cooling down the planet. To stop the rapid ice melting in the Arctics. And tomorrow night I will show you and prove to you that the poles are shifting. They're fighting against each other right now. In other words, the poles are fighting to not shift as we speak right now. The magnetic poles are fighting. And that's why you're getting chaos as well. So they're being pulled in like a tug of war, and I'll explain to you that. And those are the crop circles that were shown for that time period. I believe it's going to, and what he did was take the crop circles, not one crop circle, but several that lined up with the same style, configuration, and put them all together like a puzzle. And I believe that's what it is. Someone trying to tell us, this is what's coming, this is what's happening, and then you'd have to take the most recent crop circles to see where we're at, and I'm doing that research. Yes, the Earth is wobbling. It has been, and the sun is wobbling. Okay, the sun is wobbling. It's in this cupping. It's with this planetary system, and our governments and NASA's hiding it. Believe me. So, It's something to look out for because, as you know, our sun is acting extremely bizarre. They're using a sun simulator. The moon is very bizarre as well. Sometimes it even looks like a hologram. Okay. And it actually, if we have shifted and we're being cupped and there's other planets close to our sun, well, and they're doing a good job of hiding them as well. But there's something very serious going on in the planetary system and with our sun. And the Earth changes, no one can deny are happening. Okay? If people deny that the Earth is acting the same and everything is the same and not changing rapidly, then you got rocks in your head. Just saying, rocks in the head. Most people want to live in denial because, nobody wants to wake up in the morning and learn, we could be destroyed. I will go into further, as some of the news shows go on, I will go into further about this cupping. I've discussed it before and showed you. And that's why I think what's going on. And I believe the two binary twins, meaning our sun and the we'll call it Nemesis, its twin, which NASA and scientists and everybody have come out and I've studied it. It makes lots of sense that it's not just one sun that we have a binary twin. All right, guys. Good night. God bless.